Hello! So today we are here with Mama Jill.
Don't get smart, daughter of mine.
Who has her own fan club starting.
Welcome to JillAndThoseOtherPeople.com.
It's a good thing you guys are 500 miles away, because you'd be in big trouble right now.
Why are we even on here? All they want is Mom. All right. So today, what are we talking about, Mother?
We're talking about Christmas gifts and Christmas ideas.
It's
and all that.
October.
You know, I was going to say, it is so hard to be doing this. I've got the fan going because it's 84 today. I'm so hot. I'm about ready to croak. And we're doing Christmas stuff. So.
But the reason why we're doing it today is because actually Christmas is an all-year thing. People don't realize you have to prepare. I mean, to save money on Christmas, you have to do things all year. And I'm not just talking about making homemade gifts like sweaters and scarves and stuff. So that's partly.
And by the time Michael gets this put on, it'll only be like 6 or 7 weeks till Christmas.
I know. Yeah.
And so, you know, not that Michael will take forever. That's only a few days. But, you know, so we need to really get it out.
Yeah.
And what I'm talking about mostly today, is trying to get people to rethink gift giving. You know, think of it in a different way. And the next 2 videos is going to be along that. We'll give out some tips every once in a while about what presents to buy and that type of thing. But
it's a mindset.
Yeah, that's just what I was going to say. It's a whole different mindset that you have to grab onto. And I'm going to read a story to start out with, and then I'm going to give some examples and explain what I mean by completely reversing the way you think of giving gifts. So, Are you ready for me to start?
Go for it.
Go for it. Don't yawn while I'm reading. Actually, yeah, look at you. I wrote this story. I don't know.
When my mother-in-law talks, I have to yawn.
Okay, I can go on strike here, and you guys would be in deep trouble if I do.
All of our viewers
Everybody would leave and go to JillWithoutThoseOtherPeople.com.
Start another whole website, huh?
Yep.
Take part of your customers with you.
I think all of them will go. Okay, go for it.
Well, this story I wrote quite a while ago, a few years ago. And
so actually, this was like 12 years ago you wrote this story.
Was it that long ago?
Yes, it's like been like 12 or 15 years since you wrote it, yeah.
Oh, wow. Well, anyway, it's still true for today, you know, and it says more, it can explain more what I'm trying to say about your mindset for Christmas better than me just talking and trying to explain it, I think. So this is just like a little fictional story. It's called The Gift, and it's on the website.
Is it fictional? That's the question. Oh.
Part of it.
It's based on a true story.
Exactly. Thank you, Michael. That's it. But if you want to read this in its full, you know, read the whole thing again, it's on Living on a Dime.
Yeah, the link will be down below.
Okay. And it's called The Gift. She stood at the window watching the snow falling gently to the ground. Thanksgiving was over, and soon it would be Christmas. But her heart was heavy in spite of the snow and the feeling of Christmas. The Christmas spirit that she'd felt all year long seemed to have drained out of her with a couple of phone calls, each from a family member saying they didn't want to exchange gifts this year because they couldn't afford them. As she turned from the window, her eyes fell on her little tree standing in the corner. Its lights twinkled ever so brightly, casting a warm glow over the small pile of gaily wrapped gifts lying under it. A smile touched her lips as she thought of each person that the gifts were for. In her mind, she could see the joy and the excitement on their faces as they tore open the gifts and saw what was in them. All year, she carefully planned her gifts and had sacrificed much time and money in order to be able to buy them. She listened to each person's big desires and little ones, and had drawn so close to them that she knew not only the things they verbally said they wanted, but also the things they hadn't voiced. She knew that she had bought each one the perfect gift. Not the most expensive gift, maybe, but the perfect one for them. Yes, she had sacrificed a lot to buy the gifts, but because her love for each person was so great and because of the joy she felt in giving, she didn't see it as a sacrifice at all. So what if she had to turn the heat down a couple of degrees and wear a sweater in order to be able to have a little extra to buy that special gift for someone she loved? Yes, it's nice to go out and eat at the end of a long, hard day, but it's even nicer to watch the face of a child open a present and go into rapture over his new car, or to see Mom get tears in her eyes because you not only remembered her favorite perfume, but also how much she longed for it. Of course, there had been times when she'd looked in the store window thinking how wonderful it would be to own a dress like that. But when it came to a choice between that and a fur-trimmed coat, her granddaughter wanted the coat one, hands down. To see that granddaughter running towards her and throwing her arms around her once more, thanking her for the new coat, would make her feel more beautiful than any new dress could. Oh, she knew that there were those out there who would scold her and say she should think more of herself and do more for herself. But she just shook her head in pity for them. They had no idea what they were missing out on with that attitude. It was the very same attitude that had caused the heaviness on her heart right now. The phone calls she had received came from people who had spent all year spending money on things they wanted: new cars, TVs, clothes, and going out to eat, and they had nothing left to give someone else. When did it happen, she wondered, this change in people's thinking? What happened to the times when even a small gift was greatly appreciated because she knew that person had sacrificed so much in order to buy it or make it? What had happened to the times when parents, spouses, and children worked so hard in order to be able to give that special gift to someone they loved? When did it become acceptable to call on your expensive cell phone from your favorite restaurant to let others know that you can't buy them a gift this year because you can't afford it? Had she been mistaken all this time in her understanding of gift giving? With a droop in her shoulders, she turns and walks towards the little tree. How could it have lost its sparkle in a matter of moments? Why do the presents under it suddenly look less gaily wrapped? With tears gently rolling down her cheeks, she stoops to turn off the tree's lights. As she reaches for the plug, her hand accidentally brushes her Bible laying on the table. She looks up through the blur, her eyes alight on the passage on the open page. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life. A sweet peace starts warming her heart. She begins to smile, and her tears are flowing even more freely now, not from sadness, but from joy. The lights on the little tree become brighter and brighter, lighting up the whole room with its sparkle. The gifts under it look more beautiful than those in the most expensive department store. For in that moment, she realizes she wasn't wrong to love, to sacrifice, and to want to give gifts to the people she loves. Hadn't God himself so loved us that he gave, with the greatest of sacrifice, the most wonderful gift, his Son? She was so glad that God hadn't spent his time in heaven selfishly using all his resources for himself. She was thankful that he hadn't sent her a message saying, "Sorry, but I can't afford to give you a gift this year." In those few moments of heartbreak, she had learned something more. She had learned what God must feel like to have the gift he sacrificed so much to give be rejected and scorned. How hurtful to take away the blessing of giving from someone or to reject their gift. Yes, it seemed to be popular to say, "We can't afford to exchange gifts this year." But it didn't matter. She would continue to love, sacrifice, and give, always following her Heavenly Father's example. The above story is fictional, but I wrote it because within a week's time I heard from so many people say, we aren't exchanging gifts because we can't afford it. We aren't exchanging gifts because we can't afford it. What was even more shocking about this was most of them made as much in 1 week as what I did in a year. But yet I still managed to be able to buy gifts myself for others. And I could never understand this. And I called David and was talking to him, and he said, Mom, what you don't understand is...
David, my brother, not our son.
Yeah. And he said, people have it in their mind, unless they can pay $400, $500 a person to buy a gift for them, they think they just can't buy anything at all. Does that make, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And that's exactly what was happening when I wrote this story, is that people get this idea that money, they have to have a lot of money to buy Christmas gifts, and you don't. What I want you to, through all these videos, remember, it's not about how much money you spend, but the memories. You can make a lot of wonderful memories for Christmas without spending a whole lot of money, and we're going to have examples of that in the next, few videos and things. And so I'm going to give, what I want to do is walk through, this again is an article, if everybody doesn't know yet, on Living on a Dime, I forgot how many good Christmas stuff, articles and posts we have on the website. We probably have, 10, 15 pages of Christmas gift ideas and everything. So you can find all these articles, more detail even than what I'm going through, on the website, if you want to go after the video or something to go read it, reread it and everything. But here's a way to start out, practical way to start out giving gifts. And you pop in, Tawra, if ever you...
Well, I want to say something first before we do the practical. People have got to stop making excuses.
Mm-hmm.
It's the cool thing to say now, we can't afford Christmas gifts.
Yeah.
We're not talking about giving gifts to the trash man and
I was going to cover some of that.
All those kinds of things. We're talking about giving them to family members and stuff like that. And
we're also not talking about expensive gifts or even things that you buy necessarily.
Yeah.
And there's things that you can do that are thoughtful, but now it's almost in style.
It's like politically correct to say I can't afford, like you're a noble person when you say that.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, well, I'm being responsible for my money because I'm saying we can't afford Christmas gifts this year, so we're not exchanging them. Mm-hmm. As you're using, and this is an example I always use, as you're using your $1,500 iPhone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And quite frankly, that's just rude.
That was the point of that whole story. You know, there are times when, yes, you can't afford, seriously can't afford. There were times I couldn't afford a lot of gifts. But that's a whole different scenario than what we're talking about here. So don't jump in and say, oh, well, I just don't have the money because I'm a single mom, or we lost our job, or I understand that. And that's a whole different ball game that we're not even talking about here. So don't get caught up in that. Just, this is for, and we'll deal with stuff like that later, what to do when you really seriously don't have money, and we'll do some of those.
So instead of saying I couldn't afford it, I should have said I just don't want to give a gift to my mother-in-law.
You know what? Michael's saying that to me, but he's gotten me some of the cutest gifts. He does amazing for his mother-in-law. You really do. He got me a moose one year. I love that thing. I use that thing every year. It goes out on my fireplace mantle, and I just love that silly moose. And he's gotten me other things over the years that I just love. So don't let him, don't believe a word he says.
What it amounts to is what we're talking about, is people are saying, as they're talking on their $1,500 iPhone, what they're saying is, I don't want to waste time. I don't want to bother with buying you Christmas presents or giving you anything.
Or thinking about you.
That's one of the things that I was going to point out. Yeah, on the list.
That's what it boils down to. So,
first of all, before you do anything else, you have got to make a list of everybody. Everybody, write it down who you're going to buy for. I don't make lists. You know, I never hardly make lists. I'm not a day planner type person. But at Christmas, I make lists for everything. I'm not even going to look at you, daughter.
Sorry.
I'm not even going to look at you. But at Christmas, I make 1,000 lists. I have a whole stack of them. So the first thing is make a list for everybody. The second thing is to cut that list in half. And I'm going to explain to you how to cut that in half with these next few steps that we're going to go through. I'm trying to keep this organized in order. But first of all, you can cut the list down by getting your emotions under control. People shop because they're all happy and feeling good and excited, you know, and this feeling of love and Christmassy. Some people shop because they're depressed and lonely. Don't shop so emotionally. Try to get your emotions under control. That's why it's good to have the list, because you can keep that list a little more under control. So don't think, oh, I just love that lady at work. She wears the cutest blouses, so I'm just going to buy her a lovely little gift or something like that. You know, get the emotions under control so you don't. That's the first thing. Another thing is to think about the reasons why not to buy. Don't buy gifts to make people like you more or to impress people. How often do we do that? Bosses, we buy a gift for a boss because we want them to be impressed with us. We put our names in the Secret Santa thing at work because we're embarrassed. If we don't put it in there, they're going to say, oh my, what's wrong with them? They're not putting it, are they financially strapped or what's going on? We're just embarrassed. We want to impress people a lot of times with the gifts. Mm-hmm. Or even like going to, now, I don't want you to think we don't give to charities. We do all the time. But you have got to get your charity giving emotionally under control too. You can't just, like, I'll go to a store or something, they say, well, do you want to give your $1 or $2 to such and such? I never give to those. I say, no, I'm sorry, I can't today. Most people say, oh yeah, because they feel like they're put on the spot and they feel awkward if they don't.
I don't know how many people, I didn't realize people did this.
Oh yeah.
How many, and several people have said, oh, well, I just feel so put on the spot and I feel guilty if I say no. I'm like, why?
Well, and that's not a good reason to give. If you're giving out of guilt and how bad it makes you look, you're not really giving out of a spirit of giving.
Yeah, that's what I'm wanting to get across to people is, unless you have a lot of love in your heart and a lot of feelings for that person, you should really probably be buying a gift for them. But you know, oh, it just went out of my brain. I'm sorry, went without sleep for 2 nights, so I'm brain dead today. But you have got to, what I do, like giving to a charity, at home by myself, I think out, I'm going to give my money to such and such, or I'm going to buy. You don't do it on the spur of the moment. And this is all about the emotional giving. You have got to just, you can tell I'm trying to think of what I was going to say and I can't. But you can't feel uncomfortable like you're being put on the spot. And oh, I know. I remember when I finally got to the point where I could say, no, I'm sorry, I can't give today. Or no, I can't put it in my name in the pot. I had this freedom, and I can't describe it, that was lifted off my shoulders, because I don't think people realize how heavy that is on you when you feel so obligated and so pressured to do this. Once you can say no, it's hard the first time, I'll be honest, it's very hard the first time to say no, I can't, but second time, it's so much easier, and after the second time, it's like, hey, there's nothing to this, and this feels so good, I don't want to be caught in this trap anymore. You know what I mean? And so I wish I could get this freedom that people would feel, and it also lightens this burden on them, so that the people they really want to buy for and that they should be buying for, it makes it easier. They can think more clearly. Their mind isn't always in a chaos, feeling oppressed and trying to, do this stuff. So it makes their thinking clear. Am I saying, does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is what I mean.
You're giving out of a spirit of love and thoughtfulness, not out of guilt and obligation.
Well, it's kind of like with the Girl Scouts that nowadays here in Colorado, they stand in front of every store at the door on both sides of the door.
Yeah.
And I think the majority of the people buy because they feel like I have to run the gauntlet here, and so I'm going to buy. Well, that's not a spirit of I really want to help the Girl Scouts, and it's a spirit of I just have to do this, and I'm going to just spend the money so I can get through the door. Exactly, and they're at every store.
Yeah. And I heard a pastor say, it's only been like a week or two ago, he said, when you do things out of obligation, usually something goes wrong. Mm-hmm. And that is the truth. If you really follow it through, something goes wrong, you feel bad, you feel you spend more money than you should, it does work that way.
Well, and if I know not everybody is probably a Christian here, but if you're a Christian, there's benefit to giving with the joyful heart, giving because you want to give, because that's the heart that God wants to see from you. If it's a heart of, I have to do this or else these people aren't going to like me, that's not a heart that's going to please God.
And the Bible does say if you do it with the wrong motivation, I don't care what charity you give to, what you do, if you give with the wrong motivation, it's like it's completely canceled out.
Might as well not do it.
Yeah, it counts for nothing. So, and one of the points is don't buy for every Tom, Dick, and Harry, which is, well, if I like Tom, Dick, and Harry, you can buy for them, but don't buy for every Tom, Dick, and Harry.
Well, you might be nice to them and like them, but you don't really know them and you don't feel like giving them a big gift.
Exactly. And, go ahead, Tara, were you going to say something?
Well, I was just going to say, and don't feel like you just have to give something to everybody. Like, okay, I know we're going to get emails about this, but just don't send them. Stop making 4,000 cookies and giving them to all your neighbors just because you feel like you have to give them something.
Yeah.
You don't have to. Now, if you have one or two really, really close neighbors and you want to give them something that's meaningful or whatever, that's fine. Yeah. But you don't have to go 2 blocks down each side
to hold up your reputation as the lady that gives everybody cookies every Christmas.
Yeah.
If you're tired or you have a new baby or something's not going right, you may have to skip this year, and guess what? That's okay.
People won't even probably give it a second thought. That's the way, you don't have to give to your hairdresser. You don't have to give to the mailman. You don't have to give to the trash man. Your hairdresser, you go have your hair done. You pay her a good wage for cutting your hair. You give her a tip on top of that each time you go. You really aren't obligated to give her anything more.
Yeah.
Now, and the same way with the mailman, he gets paid. That's his job. I don't go around to everybody doing their job and giving them Christmas gifts that I happen to run across.
You don't give them to the lady at the grocery store who's checking out. So why do you give them to your trash man and the mailman?
And the same way with the trash man. Now here are teachers. Now teachers, let me explain before everybody, and I think teachers will agree with me.
Can I say one thing back on the mailman, though, just for a second? Now, just a little post note on that. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but while we were on that, we do, like when we were shipping 400 and 500 packages at a time and the mailman was picking them at our door, yes, that was their job, but we would leave a little something like some gingerbread mint or something like that when we would have a big sale as a thank you for handling all these packages.
Well, we've done that with the trash guy when he picks up an obscene amount of trash for us. And,
yes, that's what I was. Oh, go ahead.
And that's totally different than just someone who does their regular job, And that's not what we're talking about. So
no, that's what I was going to say. What I do is, throughout the year, the trash man, I'll put extra sacks out. That's what I was going to explain. And And so when I do that, I'll tape a note on the trash can that says, "Thank you so much. I really appreciate you going above and beyond the call of duty for doing this for me." And I give little notes like that. Or if I'm going to do an excessive amount, I'll run a plate of brownies out to them and thank them for doing that. And I do that all throughout the year to them, so that come Christmas, I don't have to really buy them a gift. I do that with teachers, and I think most teachers would agree with me. They would rather have a parent send them a little note card a couple months into the school that says, "I appreciate so much what you're doing with my child, and you've been such an influence on him, and you've been doing a really great job. Thank you for what you do." And then maybe at conferences telling them again, "I really appreciate this." Being kind and nice to the teacher throughout the year and working with them, instead of just not having anything to do with them, overloading them with trash or working the teacher to death, and then at Christmas give them a present, and that's like, okay, that's my get out of jail free card type thing.
Yep.
And so that's what you need to do for those types of things. But people give them to their trash man, mailman, all them, because everybody's told them they have to do that. Who came up with this idea,
Well,
probably the trash man.
Well, and part of the difference is
probably.
Part of the difference is, like, when the trash guy comes to our door, knocks on the door because we forgot to put the trash out, and when we were doing some deep cleaning in the house, and for a couple weeks in a row we put a bunch of extra trash and he takes it, we just have a heart of thinking, wow, that was really nice, I really want to do something nice for him. But when it's oh, well, everybody gives the trash man a gift, and what if I don't give as nice a gift as the guy next door? What's going to happen? That's not the heart of giving.
And you see, that's what the difference is, Michael. It's the attitude. That's why I'm saying we're trying to change people's attitude in giving. Give it because it's in your heart, because you appreciate them, not giving because of an obligation type of thing, And
when you're giving for obligation, you're giving, I think, because you're worried about what other people are going to think about you. And the problem with that is they're going to think what they think about you, regardless of whether you give a gift or you're recognized as a lady that gives cookies to all the neighbors or whatever.
Well, and they'll probably...
it's not going to get you anything, and...
They'll probably think worse of you because they'll think you're sucking up and trying to...
Well, and also I just have to think along that line, kind of. It goes with pride, trying to impress people, that type of thing. And you don't know sometimes when you're going to be helping somebody. One time I didn't put my name at work. They were doing the, where you're supposed to put your name in them, then everybody buys everybody somebody a Christmas present, whatever. And I didn't go ahead and put my name in the pot. And didn't think anything about it. That's another thing. Don't make a big deal out of it. Just say, "Oh, I can't afford, so I'm not going to put my name in this year. I just really wish I could." But blah, blah. I just quietly passed the ball on. I didn't say anything. Don't make a big deal, out of doing this. But I did this one year, and after a little bit later in the day, this gal came up to me, and she thanked me. She said, "I was so worried because I didn't know what I was going to do. I don't have the money right now." She was a widow. And she said, "I am struggling. I can hardly buy my kids presents, this Christmas." And she said, "I just couldn't do it. But I didn't know what I was supposed to do." And she said, "I saw that you didn't put your name in. And it gave me the courage not to put my name in." And so you never know when people are watching you on this stuff, too. I could have done something out of obligation, and it wouldn't have worked out near as well as when I just said, no, just pass the bowl on. And so think of these things. Don't always think of this as being a negative thing that you have to do, because sometimes it can turn out to be a positive thing when you do that. This goes for family members. Don't be embarrassed or ashamed to say to family members, could we cut the price down this year? Could we draw names this year? Do something. And keep in mind, this is all under the headline that you didn't spend huge amounts of money on yourself. You have sacrificed all year, not overloaded yourself. You sincerely can't afford these things, truly can't. And so this is the types, so if you say this to your family members, hopefully they'll understand. Now, some of them can't, and you just have to move on.
Yeah, some of them will be snitty and nasty, and just go on.
Yeah, if that's the way they're going to be. If your friends are going to be mad because you can't exchange gifts with them, if they don't know you well enough to know what's going on in your life and to be understanding, I'm not sure I want to have much of a relationship, or I don't want to invest a lot of time or anything, in that relationship. That sounds a little bit cold and hard-hearted, but it kind of makes me think of the verse that says, "Don't cast your pearls before swines," type of thing. You just kind of have to. I would rather expend my energy, my gifts, my love, my caring. Oh, that's not coming out right. Because usually those are the people that need it the worst. Awful.
But you need to do it in a way that is showing that, not in an obligating way to them.
Yes.
If
I felt convicted that this sister-in-law needed my support because she's mean and tacky, and God said in my heart, you need to be there for her, that would put a whole different twist on everything I'm saying. It would be different. So, and, it really is the thought that counts. 1 year, this goes back with, you have to stop thinking money and think of memories. Making memories. Get rid of the money idea and get the memory idea in. My grandmother-in-law 1 year.
You need to change it from what can I spend to how can I make this memorable?
Yeah.
Have that in your mind when you're working on gifts. How can I make this memorable?
Make that more important than the money.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but because I don't know, I remember more like the lady at the library with the little snowman earrings and who has the little candy canes on the counter there and gives them to everybody than I do somebody who gave me some kind of knickknack, and I was thinking, wow, I know they paid for this and all, but it's something that's just in my way now.
And
how many of us know that? Where we have like stuff that people have given us and we're thinking, well, I appreciate the fact they were trying to give me something, but I didn't really need anything.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Michael, because it doesn't take much. See, that was not much. She wore her cute Christmas earrings.
She was nice.
And she was nice, yeah. And that's what you remember. It does not take much. But my grandmother-in-law bought me a set of pillowcase, or didn't buy me. She had made a set of pillowcases before she became a bride, and she'd never used them. She'd kept them, carefully, never used them. Well, I quilt, but quilting isn't totally my passion, but I love to embroidery. And that, I really do love to do that. And she knew that, and she gave me these beautiful pillowcases that she'd made those many, many years ago for a Christmas gift. I love those things. Well, I'm talking about them now. It's like you said, Michael, I remember that gift. And it didn't cost her anything, but I remember that. And one time my grandson went, and he was at the age where don't kiss me anymore. He didn't want the kisses anymore. And so for a present, he told me, he said, Nan, okay, my present to you is you can kiss me as many times as you want a day for 1 full year, whenever you want. And he thought he was giving me the best gift, and it was. I love that gift,
For a
BJ,
year?
did you hear that?
Of course, at the end of the year, I informed him that there's the unwritten grandma law that most boys don't know. You have to kiss your grandma no matter how old you get, and they know that unwritten law now, and Nan reminds them of it all the time. Let's hope
Nan doesn't have that great big long hairy hair sticking out.
Oh, thanks.
You don't. That's what I'm saying.
Well, it's funny because the point you're making is kind of the reason why people make jokes about fruitcake. Like somebody gives you a fruitcake because they feel like they need to give you something, but it's not really something that is meaningful to you in any way.
That's because they don't make good fruitcake like livingonadime.com.
Well, and this isn't really specifically a gift thing, but there are a lot of gifts that we've given to the kids, and I think specifically about David. He cannot remember those gifts from 3 or 4 years ago that we gave him, but he can clearly remember the time we went hiking and got lost in the woods and how exciting he felt when we got out.
Yes.
on
and
our own.
that's a memory thing.
Yeah,
I hear about them about to slide down the cliff.
So it's all about what kind of how it really reaches somebody where they are, how it makes them feel better, and even in a small way is more memorable than spending something on an expensive gift.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it can be very small. That's why I'm saying it doesn't have to be.
And one thing, 2 of our kids really like gifts. That's their love language. They really like receiving gifts.
Mm-hmm.
And quite frankly, they remember everything they got, but they don't always want it. But they just like the pleasure of receiving the gift. Mm-hmm. They don't care if it's a $1 thing from the thrift store or if it's a $100 thing from Macy's.
As long as it's something.
As long as it's something. They just like opening the gifts and receiving the gifts. Don't feel obligated to spend a lot of money, because I notice parents, and maybe we're going to talk about this, but parents, they say, well, I spent $50 on that. Why are you getting rid of that toy? We spend $2 on those same toys at the thrift store. We could care less if they get rid of them a week later.
Yeah.
Actually, that's a good point, because when I was working for PBS, we would get free tickets to go to concerts and things, PBS related shows. And we took the kids to, what was it, Dragon Tales on Ice or something?
Dragon Tales and
yeah, we took them to one of those.
Teletubbies.
We took them to several of those, and of course we were in there. We didn't buy the tickets, so we didn't really have any money on the line for it, and we were just going in there to have a good time. And it turned out that the kids were having more fun pushing the button on the water fountains and walking up the stairs and down the stairs. And part of the way through, they wanted to leave. Well, these other parents, they'd gone in and they spent $50 on the popcorn and another $50 on the balloon and
another $150 on tickets.
And they spent all this money, and then when little Susie or Joey wanted to leave, man, I saw some moms completely flip out.
They were
flipping out. And they were screaming because I spent all this money and you don't appreciate it. But the thing is, what she didn't understand is,
how can a 3-year-old appreciate it?
But the thing is that what you think, when you want to spend money because you think it's going to make you a good mom or a good friend or a good whatever, and it's not in the place where that other person is, it's not going to be valuable to them at all. So like with the little kids, all they want to do is walk up and down, and they want to flip the chairs up and down at the stadium, and they want to mess with the water fountains and find light switches to flip, and that's all. And if you understand where they are,
go to the
bathroom. It's more meaningful than spending a huge amount of money and getting mad because you did something that was kind of for yourself.
Yeah, and see, that's where when you do something out of obligation, it turns out wrong.
Because when you're doing it out of obligation, you're doing it for you, not for the other people.
Yeah, and that's where it gets. And we're going to get into I think it's the next video. We're going to get into buying stuff like that for your kids that are just insane and crazy, and then you reacting to them, and doing things like that. And it's so true. Yeah. So now you've got your emotions under control, and whether your obligations, whether out of the door and that type of thing. Figure out how much you seriously can afford to spend. Get a good number, a practical number. Don't charge up the credit cards. Just think of, if you only can save $100 a week for the next 2 weeks to spend on Christmas gifts, that's what you've got to work with. And we're going to give you ideas on how you can work with that amount of money very easily, without a problem. And even if you have teenagers, I have teenagers now, grandkids, that I do just fine. So now figure out how much you want to spend, and then divide it up on your list. Figure out how much you want to spend for each person. Write that number down. Write this down so you have it in your head, because if you have $25 by this person's name and you find a $50 gift, you're just going to have to walk away from it and get something different. Yeah, forget it and try to find something else. But you've got to have it. If you can write it down and see it with your eyes, it's better than it being muddled up in your head. Write down their sizes, after you put the price, their sizes, and then gift ideas. Okay, I do this with, I have no problem, even though I listen all year long to what everybody's saying that they want, I have no problem saying, okay, I want a list. I started with the grandkids in August. Every time I talk to them, give me a list, and they know, for some reason, they give me not only a list for me, but they give me a list for Santa Claus, too. I haven't figured that one out, and David and I were talking yesterday, my son, he said, yeah, why do they give you the Santa Claus list and not us? Because I think they think I have more influence with Santa Claus than what they do, than what Mom and Dad do.
That's because you knew him personally from back in the day.
Oh!
Okay.
I gotta launch torpedoes at my mother-in-law now and then.
What is it? Lamb Blast some Mother-in-Law Day, Michael? And you know what? I was going to say, I'm your only babysitter, so
not
you better
anymore.
And you always say that, not anymore. But do you know when you guys were gone? Do you know how many hours I spent on the telephone?
Well, Jack has a timeline of his day that he's stuck on the counter edge, and it's got like sleep, wake up, get dressed, get ready, call Nan.
Go to school.
I got my call this morning. I get my call every morning. So, and then usually I end the call with one of the older kids or something.
That's what happens when you teach them how to use the phone.
I know. Oh, I know. The minute they learn how to dial Nan's phone number, it's downhill from there. But anyway, so write these gift ideas. But one thing that I use that really helped me, and I didn't plan it this way, it just worked. I don't know if you guys remember when we used to go to Ace and go see Santa, take the kids to see Santa. You could go for free to our Ace Hardware and get a picture with Santa. And
Ellie's giving me dirty looks in the background.
Because she hated that, Santa. Right?
She hated him.
Some of the kids hated going there. Others were all excited and couldn't wait.
Yeah.
But we get free Pete's and that. But what I would do is take them from Ace and go over to Big Lots that was in the same parking lot. You know how brave I was? I took 5 little kids to the toy section in Big Lots. After seeing Santa's, they were so hyped up. Can you imagine what I had my hands full with 5 of these kids looking at toys? But we looked at toys, and what we did was they picked out one gift to give to the children's home or Toy for Tots. Usually we did the Toys for Tots because they had a box there at Big Lots for them. And I gave them a small prize. They loved that. We went seriously up and down every aisle of toys, and they were so serious, and they really loved picking out those toys for, a child their age and whether they were girl or boy or whatever. But while they were doing that, they were showing me stuff they wanted. And they said, look at this, Nan. Oh, I'd love to have this. And so I got a really good list for them at that time whenever we go over to Big Lots and I wouldn't buy all the stuff there, but it gave me ideas of what to do and that type of thing. So you might try doing something like that. Just take the kids one afternoon to the store and if you're stuck on gifts that they want, and that works really, really good. Now, we have just finished talking about the extreme. Spending too much, thinking I can only spend huge amounts of money and Christmas won't work. But like everything, there's 2 mindsets. Human nature is just swinging this pendulum back and forth. We can't find a happy medium. I don't know why people have such a problem with doing things in moderation and with a happy medium. So a few years back, I noticed something was happening. Everybody started hollering, Christmas is getting so commercialized. This is so wrong. It's about Jesus' birthday and Christmas is too commercialized. Yeah, it is. I know it is. But that doesn't affect me. I don't worry about it. If it wants to be commercialized, that's their problem. It's not mine. I know what I want to buy. I have in my mind what the meaning of Christmas is for me and how much Christmas means to me. And so what the world is doing, I am able to kind of block it out a little bit. I don't know if that sounds kind of harsh, but that's the way it is. So I'm going to work within the parameters that I can, and I still can. But a lot of people reacted another way, and they went to this huge other extreme. And I don't want to offend anybody, but I just want people to kind of think any extreme for anything in life usually gets out of whack. And there are consequences down the line that kind of don't balance out right. And the other extreme was people went to is we will no longer buy any Christmas gifts for each other, for the kids, for anybody. We will no longer even we won't have Christmas trees, Christmas decorations, and all we're going to do is go on Christmas Day to the homeless shelter and serve a meal, which is fine. And I don't want to anybody think that's wrong, because I'll explain. You can do that, but you could spend Christmas morning with your family and opening gifts, and then go for a couple of hours to the homeless shelter to do. That's more the balance is what I'm talking about. But I was praying about this because I thought, okay, who's right here, dear God? I know the commercialism is all wrong. I don't have a question on that. But are you wanting us to put on somber faces and not buy any gifts? And I'd actually talked to adult children who said, I would never, ever told my parents this, but we weren't allowed to buy gifts. And they said, it made me so angry and so resentful. So there are sort of consequences from this, because the kids were hurt and they felt they didn't understand. And I kept praying and praying. And it's amazing how God will answer our questions, sincere questions, when we ask Him. And it wasn't a couple of weeks later, I was reading, I cannot believe it. I don't read this book in the Bible a whole lot. It's not a real common one. But I happened to be reading that day, and it's in Esther. And it was Esther chapter 9, and it said the Jews had been saved by God from their enemies. And I want you to read what God commanded the people to do after He had saved them from their enemies. And I want you to see, this was so parallel with the way we do Christmas, it almost creeped me out. I mean, I never knew this was in the Bible before. It said the Lord commanded them that they were told for 2 days they should have feasting and joy. I love it. Feasting and joy for 2 days. You can eat.
Here he was just saying we should have no food for Christmas.
That's just because I always get into the mode of I really want to lose weight just before Christmas and Thanksgiving.
You have to do it after Christmas, Michael. You're doing it, flipping it the wrong way. So you can have, it should be a time of feasting and joy. 2 days, like Christmas Eve, Christmas Day. And don't we love feasting? And how many times do you see peace, goodwill, joy written on signs everywhere at Christmas time? So the feasting, and another thing it said, He told them to do, He said, they were also told to give presents or gifts to each other. Can you believe that? God said this. God loves giving presents. He gave us the present of His Son, He gives us presents every day in gifts. That's His nature, is to give and want to give us gifts. That's in our nature because we're made in His image. So if we take away the gift giving and say we're not going to give gifts anymore, it's actually taking away from the nature of God in a sense. Did that make sense, kind of?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So God wants us to give gifts to each other. What we do is we make it into an extreme, and that's where it gets messed up. So He wants us to give, He said to give gifts to each other. In verse 22 it says to give gifts of food. Give those 4,000 cookies. No, not really, but don't we love giving gifts of food, like, those orange boxes of oranges or plates of cookies, or just taking food to people? We really enjoy that. Another thing is to give gifts to the poor. Christmas time is one of the biggest times that charities receive donations and things, and rightly so, it should be. Although I tend to back off at Christmas just because they have such a great need, most charities do, throughout the year at other times, that I try to give more at those times than at Christmas time. That type of thing.
It's better to give in July, actually, because that's when nobody is giving, when they're on vacation and stuff. So, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So then in verse 30, it says that Mordecai, who was Esther's uncle, went at that same time, sent out letters of goodwill and assurances. Christmas cards. Isn't that what we do with our Christmas cards? All Christmas cards mostly have goodwill towards men, peace on earth, assurances, hope you have a wonderful coming year, that type of thing. Now, once again, I get so much trouble. You guys, I'm surprised you're not killing me for this, for saying these things. And Look at you roll your eyes at Michael, Tawra.
Why? What?
I saw you glance over at Michael when I said we're going to get in trouble with this.
Oh, no, I was thinking the emails.
Oh, the emails. Yeah, that's what I mean. We're going to get in trouble. But when it says letters of goodwill and assurances, that means encouraging others. That doesn't mean writing a letter telling us how wonderful your family is.
Amen.
How your son got scholarships to Yale and Harvard and 5 other, the
13 activities your kids are in this year. I really could care less.
And think about it this way. No offense to you and your family. I'm sure that what's going on with your family is amazing for you. And I think other people that are your friends can appreciate some of that. But if you think about like on Facebook when everybody's talking about all the things in their lives, and even if they're close to you, you're not really that excited about a lot of that stuff. It doesn't mean that you're not wanting to be their friend or that you're wanting to, deflate their excitement. But
nobody wants to see 3,000 pictures of your kids every day on Facebook. So
when you send somebody a kind of a typed letter of these are how awesome we are this year because we did all these awesome things, it's not really connecting with them as a personal note. It would be better just to say, we hope you have a lovely Christmas. And that's all. That would be better than little Johnny got an award in football this year, and then we went and we did this, and then so-and-so is an honor student.
But see, that goes back to they should be letters of assurances and goodwill. And when you write something like that, that's not what that is really. And I think that's why in our soul we react to those things. In our spirit we kind of react to those things a little bit in a negative way.
And your close friends and family probably appreciate the fact that Johnny likes football.
Yeah.
But if they're that close, they should know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true.
Yeah, that is true. If you're that close to them, I know how many times my grandkids blow their nose every day just about, and so I don't need a letter like that because I know because I'm close to them.
Well, and speaking of which, okay, oh dear.
Oh, you're going to get us more trouble than I did.
A certain someone every Christmas sends a letter, and we hear about the dog, and we hear about the trips, and we hear about this or that, yet there's not enough time to even make a phone call during the year to find out how this certain other family members are doing. Well, why are you sending me the letter? I don't care.
Yeah.
I mean, if I want a relationship with you, that's what I would expect. And people...
Well, and the thing is, even one line of, I love you and I hope you're doing well, is more valuable than a big typed letter that's not signed about your dog.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, and I want to kind of close it up. We have so much more reason than the Jews did, really, to celebrate. God delivered them from their human enemies at that time, and He told them, this is how you're supposed to celebrate, just delivering them from their human enemies. And if you think about, isn't Christmas about God sending Christ? Jesus came to deliver us from our spiritual enemies, from Satan, and to, deliver us even more so than the Jews. So we
could spend eternity with Him.
Yeah, so our celebration should be even more outstanding, and more exciting and more joyful, and we should appreciate it even more. And God wants us to do those days, to remember. That's what we do on Christmas, is remember what Jesus did for us and to celebrate, the things that He did. So I think we'll leave off here, and then with the next video, maybe get into a little bit more Christmas ideas and more practical.
Sounds good.
More practical things. Okay?
Okay. Visit us at livingonadime.com. Oops, I forgot to show Mom's book. Michael put a little picture in there. Penny Pinching Mama, 500 Ways I Lived on $500 a Month. And we have that available in ebook form at the moment at livingonadime.com.
You love saying that, don't you?
Ebook form? Or livingonadime.com.
It's in ebook form finally?
Yes, yes.
All right, we will see you guys for the next episode. Have a great whatever time of day it is you're watching this. I guess it could be
Bye, everybody.
See you later.
Bye.